rules the waves so wild. Vicky with her sourdough style, California dreaming all night long. Surfing bread ain't never wrong. Salt in the air on the breeze, baking bread oh so at ease. Sunsets over Golden West in this crazy state we call the best. Surfs while Vicky makes, ride the waves with no mistakes. California's heart now in our hands, surf for queens on golden sands. Battling the ocean's roar, Vicky's bread just asks for more. Cali nights so pure and free, together they crush destiny. Under the sun, catch a wave till the run is done. Two souls, one dream alive, in this land where surfers thrive. No rules, no fences bound, just endless waves and dough that's round. Life's a wave, life's a loaf, held together by hope. Vicky bakes, ride the waves with no mistakes. California's heart now in our hands, surf for queens on golden sands. Surf for queens on golden sands. Surf for queens on golden sands. Surf for queens on golden sands.
Okay, yes, I managed to accidentally not load the video, so yeah, I had to do that real quick. Where'd you go? Don't you run from me. There you are.
Hello. That song was amazing. I was laughing pretty hard over here. Thank you for subjecting me to that.
That is why you don't let drummers write lyrics, I just have to say. Oh, yes, we have Tara Smiling, who is a peer support specialist. She has had a fascinating journey through life, starting out as a biomedical engineer, studying that in college, and then had a odd turn of events that led her to where she's at now. But I have a serious philosophy question for you. Let's just get that brain warmed up. Are Pop-Tarts ravioli?
No.
Rebel. What was your best high school prank?
You know, I'm not a prankster myself. I'm so empathetic. I feel like I can never really prank people. I'm drawing a blank on this, Ben. You threw me for a loop on that.
Wow, okay. A lot of people... Oh, go ahead.
I feel bad, you know? Like I see somebody like pull a chair out from behind from someone. It just makes my heart
Oh, yeah.
cry for that person.
Yeah,
What's yours?
Stabbing a intercom speaker, because this gal's voice would come on during lunch, and today's lunch menu is, and nobody cared. And we'd be trying to talk, and the speakers were so loud, the teacher had gone out, so I kind of stabbed the speaker a few times, put the thing back, and it came out, and everybody was very thankful for that. So I consider it a community service, and the statute of limitations is worn out on that, so I'm fine discussing that. So if anybody from Bisbee High School comes after me, well, that's just too bad.
Bisbee, okay.
But, yeah, so you invented liquid paper.
Liquid paper, I did in my early days.
Yes, a lot of people will think that's Betty Nesmith, who was the mother of the guitarist bassist, I think, Les Nesmith, who was on the Monkees. But that's what we call revisionist history. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, me and Betty White, we've created some really, really valuable things in our day. I thought maybe that's where you were drawing from, the Betty, because for those of you who don't know, my car is endearingly named Betty White, or when we went to Mexico, Betty Blanca, for technical purposes. So anyways, yeah, no, for clarification, Betty White and I did not invent liquid paper, just to be honest. I have to be honest. I can't see the prank thing and like telling fibs even as jokes. It's hard for me, Ben. I can't live with myself.
That's why I like watching you. That's why I like doing the little thing of the two
truths and a lie.
Yeah, because you got good eye movement. Yes, but seriously. Oh yes, Vicky. For people who don't know, Vicky in the song is Tara's, and I realized one of the lyrics, one part in there accidentally calls her Sarah, not Tara.
I didn't notice. I was laughing so hard.
Vicky is Tara's offspring?
Yes, she is my spawn. Vicky. This is Vicky. She's been hibernating in the fridge, so she's not, but you can see how strong she is. She is a strong sourdough starter. She rises this high, about 120% of her original size. So Vicky's my sourdough starter. For those of you who don't know, sourdough has to have a starter similar to yogurt or fermented pickles, fermented anything. You use a starter, and sourdough is a fermented food. You use a starter to mix the dough or whatever you're starting, like pickles or sauerkraut or whatever. So Vicky is my pet. She's my baby. She is over a year old now. I conceived her myself. She's just flour and water. A lot of people ask, they're curious, what is your starter? How do you feed Vicky? And I simply tell them just flour and water. And sometimes people drop their jaws and cannot believe that that's all you need to feed a sourdough starter is flour and water. So she's cold. She's been hibernating for about 10 days. So I'll feed her sometime soon. But yeah, that's Vicky, my sourdough starter.
Wow. So apparently a few people understand the whole sourdough thing, which, yeah. So, and yeah, I can actually, I get into sourdough because it's still a cheat for me, not doing the no carb thing. But hey, there's, with the sourdough, there's no gluten or very little gluten. So yeah, it's more of a cheat than a flat out breaking the rules type thing. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people who are not celiacs, just as a disclaimer, this does not apply to celiac disease, but a lot of people who are sensitive to gluten will have a really good time with sourdough because Vicky actually digests a lot of the gluten before the bread is even made and baked. So the process of fermenting it, similar to fermenting vegetables, it breaks down the hard to digest structure of whatever it is that you're fermenting and makes it easier to digest for the human.
Conversations with Christy. How you doing? Makers.
Hey,
Matrix Rabbit. Of course, Ned. You've already met Ned. Or you
hey,
said hi
Ned.
to Ned. Body Illusion. Jason P. Always a pleasure, sir.
Hey, Jason.
Yes, come alive again. Yeah, there were.
Hey, James. That's Come Alive is James.
Yes. Laurie Sue. I couldn't remember his name. I mean, I could picture him in my head, but yeah, I get his name and Luke's confused. Laurie Sue. Okay, so if anybody has not you. If anybody has any questions for Tara, please please put QQQ or question in caps before so I can spot it because I'm old and blind. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to use my readers probably. But
We
Ooh.
love creative questions. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I was wondering what you were licking.
Oh my, sorry. My Yeti. This
Oh.
is one of my most prized possessions. When I make coffee, I make double what I'm gonna drink, like double what fits in a mug.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put the extra in my Yeti to keep it warm.
Mm.
So I was a little slow to make my coffee today, so I'm drinking it a little bit later, but I'm going to need it. I'm going to need the liquid energy because I'm going to the ocean. I'm going to go swim in the ocean after this interview.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. It's been a couple of weeks because my ocean swimming partner, she went out of town 2 weeks ago, and then I went out of town last week. So we haven't swam in the ocean for a couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. I think the beach is going to be pretty busy. We're going to a little beach that's not, it's like a locals beach. So there won't be a lot of tourists there, but even so, there's going to be a lot of people there. But the water's so cold that we get a lot of real estate in the water because people go in without a suit and then they get out 30 seconds later because it's so cold. So when we get, it's busy on the beach, but when we actually get into the water, we have a lot of space.
Yeah, you get water. The current comes down from Alaska, right?
From Alaska?
Does it come down? I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
I've never paid it.
Yeah, I guess I've never thought about how the water flows like that, but yeah, from like Canada, Alaska, yeah, I think you're correct. But again, I don't know the direction of flow. I'm not a geologist or meteorologist to really understand how, like the vectors of water, like what direction those travel, but I could see how it would come down south from Alaska.
Yeah, and Body Illusion said that she apparently emailed you a documentary on sourdough.
Oh, did she? I have not seen that come through, but I've also been slacking on my Yahoo account. I've been so busy, y'all. I had to stop taking peer support one-on-one clients. I was doing that for a while, and with this new job I started, I got so busy. So Ned, if you sent that to my Yahoo, I do apologize. I have let that slip. It's something that I'm working on.
Oh, that's Body Illusion who
Body Illusion. Body Illusion. Sorry about that.
And Ned's pointing out that you're also the one who spawned Ned.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a mistake, actually. So the story goes that I misread her screen name for it went on for like a week or something before she told me lovingly and gently in the chat. I was saying her name Awake Ned by the looking glass reflection instead of awakened. I don't know why my brain was reading it that way, but she was Awake Ned to me. And finally she told me that it was awakened. I was like, how did I read it that way? But I just started calling her Ned, and I asked her if it was okay. So before y'all get excited and say, how could you? I asked her for her permission, and she said that she was okay with me calling her Ned. So I always just call her Ned.
So I'm wondering if you can, for people who may not know who the mighty Terra, the surfer goddess, that you are.
Ocean swimming lately. I haven't hopped back on the surfer. I really need to de-wax and wax my board. And I am getting antsy with the ocean swimming. Like, I think the ocean swimming was a good interim kind of step back toward the board. But I just wanted to be clear. I'm not a surfer goddess. I'm an aspiring surfer goddess, but I am an ocean goddess.
I see your mouth moving, but all I hear is blah, blah, blah. You obviously think that your input has any play in the reality I've created here. I got my own little reality that I go by. But yeah, so can you share whatever you're comfortable with? Of course, I don't mean to pry or anything. How you went from being a biomedical engineer, your incredible journey that you went through to, you know, then living in your car and to where you are now.
Yeah, so it was a journey. I think you used that word appropriately. I was happy in my role as a research and development engineer. I moved into quality engineering for a period of time at the medical device company that I worked at. And then 2016, I got bit by an exploration bug, I guess you could say. And I just really wanted to take an adventure. I wanted to go on a trip, and I thought what my trip was going to look like was going to be hostel hopping, staying at different hostels, exploring different cities. Well, little did I know that the night before I was to leave for my trip, I'd quit my job. I put in my 2-week notice. I put in, the 2 weeks. Like, I did things responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
And the night before I left, I discovered dispersed camping. I was having a conversation with a friend, and she's like, "Are you going to dispersed camp?" And I was like, "What is that?" And so I started doing some research and thought that I might want to give it a shot. I had wanted to get connected with nature for quite some time. I'd been doing yoga for about 10 years up until this point, but always in a studio.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started having this fantasy of like, I just want to do yoga in nature. And mind you, I was like very in the throes of my addiction at that time. I've been clean and sober now for almost 3.5 years. In a few weeks, it's going to be 3.5 years, which blows my mind. But I was very much in the throes of that at that time. And so I feel like that influenced my thinking quite a bit. Although I look back and I'm happy that I explored and that I've been out and seen so many different parts of nature in North America. That was my territory, I guess you could say. Once I discovered dispersed camping, I'm kind of jumping forward a little bit. So I'll go back. Like, once I discovered dispersed camping and started researching all the different places that I could camp for free, I was like, I could stay on the road for a lot longer period of time if I do it this way rather than spend my money on lodging. So, and I had set up my Prius to sleep in it too. I had a cot that actually, as soon as I got that cot set up in my car and I was comfortable in it, I quit my job the very next day, as a matter of fact, because I was like, all right, I'm doing this. I had seen people on YouTube who camped in their Priuses. And so I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And quit my job the next day, donated a lot of my stuff, sold some of it, put the rest of it in my friend's garage. They graciously let me store some things in their garage. And then on the trip, like, I discovered rock climbing, and like I did do yoga outside, and I loved that. And I discovered rediscovered surfing, because I had surfed one time when I was 18. I started traveling the rock climbing circuit to different rock climbing locations, and then later on the surfers circuit and checking out different surf breaks. And I just did not want it to end. But long story short, it was all fun and games until I ran out of money. And I worked odd jobs here and there, right? But for me, what running out of money looked like, because I did stop in locations. I stopped in Mammoth Lakes to work at a spa for 6 months. I stopped in San Francisco for 6 months to work at a rock climbing gym. So that was my strategy. I'd run out of money and then I would get a job and work. Well, eventually I took a job at a marijuana farm. This was obviously before I got clean and sober. And that got to be, I feel like I have to be careful with my words, because who knows who's going to see this, right?
Sure.
I didn't get paid what I was promised. This farmer paid me a small amount to hook me in, and then didn't end up paying me what he promised. promised that I would be able to afford a little bungalow in the area that we were, promised a livable wage, promised all these things, and hooked me in with a good chunk of money in the beginning of my time on the farm, but then didn't follow through with continuing to pay me. And I saw it happen to other people. I heard other people complaining about it, but I didn't think it would happen to me.
Yeah.
And so I ended up leaving that farm. I'm making a long story very short here and leaving out like pretty big, important pieces of information, but just to condense it so that we don't go on and on and on about this story. I mean, it could take a couple hours to tell this whole thing. Long story short, at the same time that I wasn't getting paid, I started being followed. Some professionals call it stalked. I have a hard time using that word myself. It's like, I don't know if it's denial or what. I have a hard time using several words that professionals use with respect to my story. But someone started following me, a surfer that I met, and he was making me very uncomfortable. He was showing up in public places all over the place when I was there. He would be near my car in the morning when I would wake up. And it felt very dangerous to me. I reported it to the police. They said, no harm has been done, so there's nothing we can do. You need to get out of the area. But I didn't have any money to get out of the area because I wasn't being paid from that job. So I actually overdrew my account to get out of the area. And then started relying on supports because I was just like, I'm in trouble here. Like, I have no money. I'm not being paid. This guy is following me. I can't go back to my comfort zone, to where I had resources and like, I had a membership to this hot spring where I was showering all the time. I had to walk away from all of that. I was not in good shape, and I was feeling desperate for help, but I was embarrassed to reach out to my support system because I'm like, man, I took this job. I'm embarrassed that I've put myself in a situation where now I'm in danger. And so I started calling hotlines for help. And after 3 days, it was a very long 3 days, but after 3 days, I ended up being sent to a crisis stabilization unit where I put myself on a 23-hour hold because I was having intrusive thoughts. I was afraid that I was going to either be hurt or hurt myself. And I also wanted to get clean and sober, but I literally could not stop using. Actually, the day that I went to the crisis stabilization unit, I met someone who gave me, well, of course I was smoking marijuana. I met someone who gave me some chocolate with some mushrooms in it. And so I like showed up to the crisis stabilization unit, like tripping. I was in my right mind. I could have a conversation because my tolerance was pretty high, but they ended up placing me at a safe house because of my story. They identified me as someone who had been exploited for labor, which terrifyingly to me also falls under the category of human trafficking. There's different varieties of human trafficking. There's sexual exploitation, there's labor exploitation, and I fall in the labor exploitation camp. And so they sent me to a safe house where I ended up living for a year. I got clean and sober there. Did not expect to make it very long, but I did. I can't believe that I did, actually, based on how much, like how deep my addiction was and how much I was using at that time. But I made it. And then after I left the safe house, I continued to choose to stay clean, which I can't believe that either. I thought I was just going to do it for a period of time so that I could keep my safe housing situation. And here I am now, 3.5 years in, and I'll be honest, sometimes it's challenging, and sometimes I do think about going back and like what would be the harm in, just taking a walk to the dispensary that's on the next block. Actually, there's one on the next block, and I live in California. They're everywhere. There's one on my block. There's one on the next block, a dispensary. I could just walk in and catch some relief for a little while, but I continue to stay the course, and my life has improved quite a bit. So flash forward as to why I've been so busy and not on YouTube lately. I got a new job. I'm loving it so much. And pardon me if I'm just rambling on and on. I don't know if you want to flash forward or if you have questions about what I just shared, or if it was detailed enough for you.
Oh, just a couple questions came up.
Sure.
So
Sure.
PNW Ocean area?
I saw that come through Pacific Northwest.
Oh,
I'm technically Southern California, but I'm more central. I'm Central California, so not quite Pacific Northwest. Although I love the Pacific Northwest, it is, our part of the ocean is chilly, kind of like that area, but it's a little warmer down here.
Ned writes, have you heard Tara Smiling about the most recent Supreme Court decision? Okay, so yes.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That was a huge blow to the community of people who are homeless by choice. That's I do see both sides when I look objectively at the situation. At some level, I think people have a right to live the way they want. At another level, I think a lot of people are living in squalor and not necessarily doing like themselves a service by living that way. And a lot of people, I think, don't understand that there are resources for them. They don't have to live that way. A lot of people think they have to have an income, or that they have to have a job or do things in order to secure housing. And in some places that might be the case, but in California, it's a housing first state, and that's not the case. So I think we could do a better job at explaining what the resources are and building rapport with people experiencing homelessness to educate them on the help that exists for them. But on the other hand, it is a free country. So why is it all of a sudden illegal for people to explore and live in a way that makes them happy? It made me happy for a period of time to be without a home and to live in my car. But then, like I said, I ended up in a very dangerous situation and had to seek safety. So it's a tough topic. It's a tough topic, I think, to really, for me, I don't even know what my perspective is. I try to think about it, and I'm like, well, it's a free country, right? But then I'm like, well, it is dangerous. Like I ended up in a horrible situation because of my choices. And drugs and alcohol were involved. So yeah, I've definitely heard of the Grants Pass ruling. Yeah, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, and of course, first of all, yes, and I find it interesting that your new position deals with that, but not to jump forward too much. What do you think is just off the top of your head? You don't have to give this a lot of thought, obviously. I'm not looking for a definitive, deep answer, but just off the top of your head, do you have any memories that you are fond, that come to mind fondly when you were living in your car? I'll call it homeless.
Yeah, a lot. I have a lot of really great memories. Most of which involve drugs and alcohol, I'll be honest. So it's kind of a mind, F starts with an F. It kind of messes with my mind a little bit when I think back on those times, because I did have a lot of really great times. I think all the times that I spent in Yosemite climbing rocks. I've been on El Cap several times. I haven't sent El Cap. I haven't climbed the whole thing yet. I've been about a third of the way up
Wow.
several times, and I've been on on the top at the summit. I've hiked to the top to retrieve some gear for some guys who did climb it. I spent a lot of time in Yosemite, and those are some of the really fond moments that I have. I learned how to aid climb in Yosemite. I learned how to climb in Yosemite, actually. Like, that's where I learned to climb. And Yosemite is every rock climber's dream, the pinnacle of where they want to go as a climber. And that's where it started for me. So I feel really blessed to have had that experience. And then, all the yoga that I did in nature, I hesitate to share this piece of information with you, but there was a period, I'll share this. It's insider information. For a period of time, it didn't last very long because I started feeling unsafe, but for a period of time, I was going to clothing optional beaches and practicing yoga there. And that felt so freeing and so liberating, and was a highlight of my trip. But every time I did that, I would be approached by someone, and they would give, every time I did it, people would give me weed. And sometimes people would throw money down, and it started feeling a little bit adulterated, for lack of a better term. But in the beginning, it was, when I did it, it just felt so liberating, and I felt so empowered. So I would say, all the rock climbing, the surfing that I did, I lived to surf. The last year that I was in my car, that's why I had no money. Actually, it wasn't just because I wasn't getting paid. It's because I spent all my money on a surfboard and a wetsuit. And then with the expectation that I would continue to get paid. And then no more money came in. So I lived to surf because that's all I had left. It's what got me up in the morning. And so I think all of the time I spent in nature, which that's predominantly what my time was focused on, was doing activities that were centered in nature. And I do miss that sometimes. I spend time in nature still, but it's just not the same as when you go to sleep in the woods and wake up in the woods day in and day out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, wow. I guess because it was a choice on your part to go out and do this. So I don't know why I was surprised to hear that you did have fun, but obviously that's what you did it for. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense now, and I never knew that about you. It's like one of these things. Every time we talk, I find something new out about the mighty Tara Smiling.
I think it would be interesting to get a statistic on how many people start their journey or their experience of being homeless or unhoused. There's a movement of people who don't want to use the term, even if you say people experiencing homelessness, they don't like that. They're starting to use the term unhoused or houseless, which is interesting. I still tend to say people experiencing homelessness, but I'm now aware that there's this emerging school of thought. But it would be interesting to get a statistic on how many people experiencing homelessness started because they wanted an adventure, or they just didn't want to play the 9 to 5 anymore. I would be willing to bet that it's a higher number than we might expect. And then once you fall into it, like I see Ned's comment, fall into a position of homelessness and struggle. I think that's so accurate, because I did not know that I was going to fall into, I didn't view myself as someone experiencing homelessness when I started this thing. When I quit my job and moved into my Prius, it was just an adventure that I was taking. But then, you run into challenges, or I ran into challenges anyways. And I didn't know it's really hard to get out of it once you're in it, because you don't have a stable job anymore. You don't have, or it's challenging to have a stable job when you live in your car. You don't have rental history anymore. So who's going to rent to you when you have no place of residence for the past
Sure.
5 years?
Oh,
3 years, however long it's been since. There's all kinds of challenge, and it's all, you have to be on the move constantly. It's more than a full-time job, and I think that's probably the thing that people don't realize the most. Some people think that people experiencing homelessness are lazy. I had someone walk past the place where I work the other day, and they were like, "What is this place?" And I said, "It's a center for people experiencing homelessness." And he said, another resource for homeless people. And I said, "Yep, we're open." And he yelled at me. He said, "Tell him to get a effing job." And I was just like, "Bro, how naive are you, man?" Like, I mean, there was nothing I could say to him.
Yeah.
I just let him go on his non-merry way. But a lot of people think that people experiencing homelessness are lazy. And I will tell you that not having a place to decompress and relax at night is more than a full-time job. I mean, you are constantly on alert. You are constantly having to move around, figuring out where you're going to get food, figuring out where you're going to shower, like having to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning when the sun starts coming up so that you don't get kicked out of a place. Like, it is nonstop.
Wow.
So much work, and people don't realize that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And what you were saying earlier brought to mind the whole thing with, what was her name? Petito, Gabby.
Gabby
Yeah.
Petito.
Yeah. That was, van life. That was her choice. I mean, granted, that ended badly, but that was not due to, was due to her relationship with her, boyfriend. But, it was an example of how modern society is, there are a lot of people in modern society exploring that, and it's, kind of odd that, hey, if you got the resources, hey, more power to you.
Sure.
Not all of us are tied to technology where we need to have this, and for those people who aren't, why not? Yes, Cool Cat says, "I've been sober for 17 years, best decision I ever made, survived the physical damage, liver repaired itself enough to leave the hospital, go to rehab, never looked back." Good for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is always good to hear. And there it is. I saw that, Tara, cool water in central areas. Sounds like SLO.
Slow, San Luis Obispo.
Oh, okay.
That's actually where I was when the whole stuff went down and I had to ask for help. That's exactly where I had ended up. It's not where I'm at now, but I love San Luis Obispo. I definitely do fit in there. I agree.
Yeah, that, and I was kind of theorizing. I mean, I didn't want to say it outright. I kind of theorized that.
Yeah.
It's bad for tourism where I live. Let's see here. The availability and resources are a disillusion, in my honest opinion. People there are plenty of them, but as far as when trying to locate them, it becomes such a rabbit holes that are impossible to. Where's the next one from Ned? That's one of two. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Find your way through, even if you have normal lifestyles, but without certain things like phone. Yes. How did you get through that without a phone? Or did you have a phone? And
yeah, I had a phone the entire time. I'm blessed to have been able to maintain the same phone number. I've had the same phone number ever since it's the only phone number I've ever had. And I agree. I think resources are unbelievably difficult to navigate. There are a limited number of resources, and it does present a serious challenge. And I actually, with a colleague of mine, I was talking the other day, I was like, I'm frustrated about something. Do you think that they're intentionally convoluting the system so that less people will jump through the hoops that are required to get help? Or do you think that they're just really are like a limited number of resources. And he said, I like to think that it's not intentionally convoluted. I serve on a few boards now and committees,
Mm-hmm.
and I run groups for the organization that I work for. And everybody in the city that I live in, we're all doing the best that we can to improve the system for people who are experiencing homelessness, to make it easier for them to navigate, to make more resources available. We're working on getting more permanent supportive housing, which I think is the best thing that an area can do to help people experiencing homelessness. That's what got me out of the shelters, was permanent supportive housing. And I've since moved on from that. I'm not in that anymore, but it served a fantastic purpose for me. And I think it could really, really put a dent in the number of people that are on the street right now or living in their cars, vehicular homelessness. To put a little cherry on top of that comment, I would like to agree with my colleague that it's not intentionally convoluted, and that there's just a limited number of resources. Is there a limited number of resources intentionally? That's a whole other can of worms, or not. I don't know. I would like to think that we're doing the best that we can with what we've got, and that we'll continue to improve the system.
Sure.
But then some people are like, well, if there were enough resources, then everybody would access them. And it's not a bad point. So it's an interesting topic, I think.
Love to do that. I actually started a poll the other day asking about addiction and leading up to that, though. Interesting. Yeah, and I think that would be an interesting poll, because I would love to see the answer as well. There's been a lot of times I've been interested in trying to get statistics for things that unfortunately don't exist. There's unhomed Silicon Valley. Wow, people have good jobs, but the cost of living is so high. Makes sense. Can't afford to rent even with roommates. Yeah, some of the housing costs there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that demographic that you're describing is, I think those people are more apt to move into their vehicles. Those aren't the ones that you're going to see in the street living in squalor. Those are the ones who are going to try to make a nest in their van or buy a van and make a nice home for themselves. I lived in San Francisco for 6 months, and there are a lot, and this was prior to the COOF, C-19. This was prior to that I lived in and there were a lot of people living in their vehicles there.
Sure. Yeah, that, even though nobody should have to live the atrocities that are hidden by MSM. What is it with me not getting TLAs, 3-letter acronyms? I used to work with the government. I should be used to them, but man,
I don't actually know what MSM is either. I'm trying to put that one together.
It's women over the age of 57. Interesting. Wow, let's see here. So how long have you been, okay, so you started your channel. You didn't start that while you were in a safe house? No, I guess not.
No, I started that while I was living in permanent supportive housing. I really just wanted to document my ketamine journey. As a matter of fact, that's how it started. Because I was considering starting ketamine, and I really wanted to have a baseline to be able to go back and compare what I was like prior to starting treatment,
Sure.
and to see if there was going to be an improvement, if there was going to be a worsening of symptoms, or what it was going to look like. And I wanted video, and I wanted to share that. I felt like maybe it could add value to someone who might be thinking about it. And then it turned into improvement in my symptoms and improvement in the way that I was feeling. and it turned into a peer support channel where I was offering my peer support services. And then I got so overwhelmed with everything that I was balancing that I was just like, I've been calling it a livatus, like a live stream hiatus. I've been on a livatus the past over 2 months now.
Sure.
And I feel kind of guilty about that because I was showing up regularly for about 8 months, 9 months or something like that, very regularly, like every single Monday and every single Wednesday for a period. And then I went down to just Wednesdays. And I just got so busy starting this job. And now, like I said, I'm on 2 boards. I am on a committee. I run groups. I have the Discord group that I do on Thursday nights, and I started a new recovery meeting at the place that I work at. It's been a whirlwind getting back into the workforce, if you will, but I really enjoy it. I'm really, really enjoying it. I do have plans to start creating content on YouTube again.
Sure.
I just don't want to promise when that's going to be. And a little teaser, you know, I don't know if anybody out there is interested in checking it out when it comes out, but I will be, I sense a shift. It's not going to be the same, you know, kind of like how it was ketamine based in the beginning and then it went to peer support. I feel a shift happening, and I really feel motivated and inspired to start creating content around, I hesitate to say lifestyle, but just sharing what my life is now, you know, talking about the work I do, talking about the ocean, bringing people to the ocean, like when I do wax my board, like bringing people along that journey to see what my recovery looks like and the things that I'm able to do because of my recovery, the ketamine treatment, the sobriety, all of those things.
Sure, that makes sense because you're also, starting a vlog to keep track of that, because you can also use appearance, not just your thought process, but, how am I looking? Am I, do I look emaciated or whatever? I feel like much of the dismissals, judgments, etc. of homelessness is due to people not wanting to look within themselves and admit if they did. They might feel as if they would need to do something. Yes, I think that probably is a strong thing. And I fully get your point about shouldn't point like that. Yes. I do get your point though about vlogging and how, or running your show, and it's how life can intrude. Because yes, I was doing shows every day, and then work happens, and some other different things can happen, and so I get that. I think many people who are working to provide resources, etc., are overworked and underpaid with little aid on their own. Sadly, it seems if many who started with good hearts have become desensitized. I could see that as being a danger.
I mean, I feel like it's a part of the journey. Like it's just a part of the process, because there's some level of detachment that I think has to be in place in order for you to provide good, centered help to people. I mean, we hear some pretty gnarly stories, and sometimes they echo that of my own. I had a gal come into the center where I work last week, and she, for some reason, felt comfortable right out the back, because I work the front desk. I'm the first person that people see when they come in, which is an honor. And this girl came in, it was her first time in, and she felt comfortable telling me that she was being sex trafficked and that she felt scared for her life, and she'd just been punched in the face, and you could see the swelling on her face. And it's so emotionally taxing to provide support to these people, knowing that, I've made it to housing. Like I have this really comfortable place where I live. I knew that I was going to have, And then to have someone like her where I'm like, I know how disempowering and scary it feels to not know if you're going to be safe that night.
Yeah.
And she was talking about someone following her, and I was just like, that, like, the best that I can do is offer her a safe space to be able to talk about it with somebody and connect her to the resources that we have available. Also, I called the safe house director that I used to live at. She told me that she would let me refer people if I ever had somebody come in. She's like, you can refer people. And so I called her. She didn't answer. So maybe she took, it was Friday, maybe she took a long weekend or something like that. But it's like, there's some level of detachment, I think, that has to happen in order for me to be efficient at the job that I do, because it is so emotionally taxing that if I just allowed myself to get wrapped up in that day in and day out, it would be exhausting and I would get burnt out really quick. Like, I have to be, I have to have some sort of protective shell around myself, and not to be cold to people, but just not allow the pain and suffering of other people to prevent me from doing my job.
Sure. Oh yeah, and that makes perfect sense, because a lot of good, you are not going to do that much good for people if you're burned. I mean, that's a disservice in and of itself. So yeah, and that is something I'm wanting to explore a little bit more, is detachment in my own life, because I know that even just hearing somebody's traumatic story, that there are times, and I don't know, I haven't been able to figure the trigger. I mean, there's a lot of times I'm able to listen to it all day. Okay, fine. Well, maybe not fine, but within a reasonable amount of time, it's like, okay, just put that aside. And there are other times I'll hear something. Maybe if it's even not even, the thing is, like, you start digging in, is this triggering to me? No. It's like, wow, there are just times where, it can take a lot out of you, and I think it's just dependent upon how you're doing that day. And it's such a hard situation for everyone. One I will continue to shine a light on, though. I am so glad to see we have people such as yourself who are willing to do the same, Terrace Mike.
Aw, Ned, you're so sweet.
Food costs are outrageous. For example, $5 a pound for tomatoes. Nutrition, yes, I can imagine that would be. I mean, how do you start? How do you maintain your caloric intake doing that? I mean, that sounds. It's at first, of course, you're choosing to do so and things like that. It sounds like, okay, yeah, you can manage your caloric intake and blah blah blah. But once it starts becoming once you're on the run, so to speak, things like that, that sounds like, wow, you're burning up a lot of extra calories.
Right. And I actually didn't know about resources for quite some time. I didn't start tapping into resources for low income individuals until I left the farm. And I quite frankly was underweight. I'm 5'8" and weigh 125 pounds now, which is healthy. But at that time, when I got placed at the safe house, I weighed 115 or maybe even less. I put 115 on my ID, but it might have been 113 or 114. I still have the same wetsuit that I bought, and it's like I'm kind of busting out of it at this point. I need a new wetsuit, but I'm gonna wait until they go on sale in February and just deal with the one that I have. But yeah, the caloric intake thing is a real problem when you're living that lifestyle. And if you haven't tapped into resources, plus even if I had the food, which oftentimes I had the food, but I didn't feel safe to make it because I didn't have a van. If I were to do it all over again, I would have a van that I could stand up in. I would not do it in a Prius because sometimes I didn't feel safe to get out and make food, or I had to just like reach in the back and get some tortillas and some peanut butter and bananas. And, I ate a lot of like corn tortillas with peanut butter and bananas on it because I could just make that in my driver's seat. But
Wow.
These days, it's especially in Central California where I'm at, there's a lot of resources for low income individuals to make sure they're getting enough nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from CalFresh, which is our EBT or food stamp program, a
Yeah.
lot of people are taking advantage of food service. It's a food delivery service that our insurance here in Central California offers for free.
Mm.
So I would encourage, if you're low income, to dig into what resources are available, because I couldn't actually, like, I kept spending $20, $30, like over my budget for food, and was very stressed out several months ago.
Sure.
And then they rolled out this food program, and now I have more than enough food, uh, and I'm really thankful for it.
Mm.
So I would encourage you to look into what resources are available in your area.
Mm. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lori Sue talking about, yes, parents sold a home 1977 for 73K. Now it's worth nearly 2 million.
Yeah, that Bay Area.
Yeah,
Bay Area.
wow. I mean, yeah, the housing costs there are just astonishing. It'll blow you away.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, by the way, Tara Smiling, I didn't mean to hijack your interview. I get too excited, the brain stops thinking sometimes. Welcome to my life.
Ned, I don't know. I appreciate where you're coming from, but I'm always happy to see you and to hear your thoughts and what you have to say.
Finally decided to book an appointment with a therapist. Hopefully we jive this time. Tara and KM, the mighty KM, who is Kristen Melinda, have unknowingly inspired me to give it another shot. Oh, that is wow. That is cool to hear.
That's great news, Jason. I cannot tell you how much benefit I have gotten from working with a therapist. I mean, I can't imagine my life without her at this point. I've been seeing mine for about 1.5 years now. It's the longest I've ever seen one therapist. I've had more therapy than that collectively with different therapists, but I've been with this one for 1.5 years now, and she's a great fit for me, and she has made a huge difference in my life. I think it's wonderful that you're wanting to go down that route, Jason.
Yeah, that is great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, else risk vicarious trauma. Totally see where that would be necessary. Yes, it's amazing. Vicarious is one of those words that I've seen, I've heard, but I just realized I don't say much. So,
yeah, it's actually, we learned in my peer support training, there's a name for that, the vicarious trauma. It's called secondary trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely something to be aware of and look out for. Sure. And to so thank God I have other peer support specialists in my network that I can talk with. I've got my therapist who can help me really process things. And my boss is great. He has been clear about wanting us to come to him. He's not a therapist, but he wants us to feel free to let him know if we experience something that is traumatizing. Sure.
Yeah, now Awaken does a lot of stuff like that. I've noticed. She's introduced me to a page she was working on along the same lines, but the resources thing is unreal. I've been building my own spreadsheet of them as I go along. Oh, if there were a more universal way to locate in a more efficient manner. So very true. Lori Smith talking to Body Illusion. I left California in '85 for Washington State. Fortunately, I can't imagine attempting to survive in California now. Wow. Neek Alexander, welcome. When I decided to go into therapy, I explicitly shopped around. I told each therapist what I was doing. Money was tight. Asked if they'd be willing to do 15, 30 minutes free. That is pretty good. Yeah, and Tara and I were talking about this before coming on, that a good therapist, if you can find a good one, yes, stick with them as much as, because I mean, it's one of those things not to kind of try to diminish the therapy community, but it's just something that you have to be aware of. You have to be your own best advocate sometimes, and look for those therapists which could possibly be not as good as what you could get. So it's important to always to be on the lookout for a good one, and know necessarily, and and try to figure out, okay, is this one not doing me any good? Not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and saying, yeah, it's not going to work for me. Of just trying to give somebody a different shot.
I think also I was just talking with my therapist about this. She so appreciates the preparation that I do before I go into a session with her. And I think that makes a huge difference for me personally, because I think a lot of people, I've heard people talk about how they feel that they're not getting benefit from their therapy sessions, but they're not doing any preparation. So I do a lot of like reflective writing in my journals. And if something's really bothering me, if something makes me cry, for example, during the week, I will write about it just briefly. I don't do these long journal entries, but just briefly. And then right before my therapy session, I will go back and highlight, either with a literal highlighter or just with my mind, highlight things that bothered me that week that I feel could use some attention or processing. And then I will go into my therapy session with a list of things that I want to discuss with my therapist, and I will rank them in terms of how much they're affecting me. So I prioritize. And I think that makes my sessions really efficient and productive, because sometimes people just go into sessions without a plan, without an idea of what they want to talk about, and they rely on the therapist to guide them or to ask questions to get to things that need to be resolved. But a therapist is not a mind reader.
Yes.
They need to be given something to work with so that they can help you with that. And it's our responsibility as the clients or clients, I think. It's our responsibility as the client to come prepared with what we want to work on.
Sure. Yeah, and that was one thing that we covered. I don't remember who I was with, probably Shannon Smith. One of the things that we covered was Andrew Bustamante talking about how, ex-CIA spy, he was talking about how short-term our short-term memory actually is, and how short even our long-term memory is. That unless you revisit something constantly, long-term memory, you'll typically forget it in 2 days. So yeah, when you hit those big rocks that give you, issues, or that you've noticed that, hey, I'm having an emotional reaction to this. Yes, by all means, write it down, because I made that mistake countless times going to a therapist, and just there have been tons of things that have bugged me that week that would have really helped me with my mental health if I had thought about them. But yeah, it was just something you forget, and you go in, okay, doc, so okay, so how's your week going on? You're talking, you're letting things through, you're processing, but nowhere near as efficiently as what you were talking about. And Nick, it's not even a matter of competency so much as compatibility. Yeah, I'd say that. Some therapists are just, some of them just have, different views on things and than where you're wanting to go. To some people, mental health looks one way, and, well, I shouldn't say mental health, but being satisfied looks one way to some people, and it looks completely different to others. So therapists are like a good friend. You have to be on the same page and click. Yes. Let's see here. Another awaken. So wise. We should always be interviewing our therapists, etc. Sometimes it's not the therapist, but our lives change, meaning so do our therapy needs. Yes, that is man. Ned is really on the ball, I tell you.
Agreed.
Let's see, if your younger self met you today, what would surprise them the most about you?
If I met my younger self,
Yeah.
what would surprise me about my younger self?
No, what would surprise you as your younger self, what would surprise you the most about as a child, what would surprise you the most about yourself now?
Oh, I think probably just the journey through addiction and experiencing homelessness,
Mm,
because when I was younger, I thought I was never going to do drugs in my entire life because I saw what it did to my family members.
mm,
It created separation between me and my dad. Um, my all of my grandfathers, my mom's, so my great grandfather on my mom's side, my great grandfather on my dad's side, and my grandfather on my dad's side, my great grandfather on my did I say grandfather? Basically, all of my great grandparents
hmm
uh, were homeless and died winos on the
Wow.
street, and I
Mm,
didn't know that until I was an adult. My mom shared that with me, but
interesting.
it is interesting, and we know that genetics plays a big part in addiction.
Mm,
It's not the whole thing, but
yeah.
it's just
Wow.
interesting to me that I had such a high probability of falling into that type of lifestyle. And I never would have guessed as a child that I
Mm,
would have fallen into that. I mean, I didn't know
yeah. Sure.
that addiction was that prevalent in my bloodline, but I knew that it was not something that I wanted to do because of my dad. He spent time in prison because of
Mm,
his drug use. Not he didn't get busted for drugs. I won't blast his business out, but he did spend some time in prison, 3 years of my
mm,
childhood in prison, and I did not want to be like that.
mm,
But I ended up, I never ended up getting busted. I'm lucky because I've been pulled over drunk many times and never been busted before.
mm,
Thank God. But it would really surprise my younger self to know that I ended up going down the route of
mm,
abusing substances,
mhm,
and that I was homeless for a period of time. I would
mm.
not be able to believe that as a young Tara.
Wow. Well, yeah, that makes, yeah, and of course your journey is just, there's so much to it. I mean, you're probably, wow, I think you're the only person I know of who has been through living in a car. I'm, wow, I mean, that is really, well, I think I met, I'm sorry, I think I met a couple, but not long term like that. I mean, one of these things where I'm going to move to wherever, I'll live out of my car until I find a place to live, blah, blah, blah. But I do find a certain romantic idea about going around the country. I don't. Now it's a romanticized idea. I realize that I'm missing the reality of it. What do you do? And there's a certain romantic aspect of, oh yeah, just going out and living life free. But what about the small mundane matters like when you get a toothache? What happens? You accidentally put diesel in your car or something like that.
Mm. The first thing did happen. I had to have a tooth pulled when I lived in my car and
Mm,
had to do the recovery in my car and everything. But I've never put
ooh,
diesel in my Prius before. Thank
mm,
God.
yes, and that was one of the things that happened to Neil Peart. He was a drummer for Rush. He did something similar. He was traveling, although he had a little more in the way of financial resources, but he was traveling North America on his motorcycle because he realized it was a year or 2 years after his wife's death that he did research and found that the second year was much worse than the first for people who were in that position. And so he knew that when the anniversary of her death came along, that was going to wipe him out. So he decided to distract himself doing that. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, you have all these amazing travels. He's got tons of money, but yeah, still small things, toothache. Uh, and he accidentally put, or somebody put diesel in his bike. And of course, yeah, you have to have the thing taken completely apart because now it's, in the engine and blah, blah, blah. You have to drain everything. And oh, yeah, just a nightmare. So yeah, something like that can happen to somebody with a lot of resources. Wow, what would it be like with somebody with a meager amount? It's like, wow, that could really do a number on you.
Mm-hmm. Or
Yeah.
the worst, the when I hear you say things like that, it brings up, in my mind, what it brings up is like, oh my gosh, I do not miss going to sleep at night and then
Mm.
getting the dreaded knock on your window, right?
Mm.
The dreaded knock on the window. It happens to everybody.
Mm.
Unless you're paying for campsites every night. But if you're dispersed camping, if you're, camping in the woods, and then when you go through cities finding a spot, like, it's inevitable that you're going to get a knock on the window and you're going to have to move, and that stinks. Or
Oh
going to
wow.
the bathroom. Like, until I figured out my system for that, people always want to know, how did you go to the bathroom? And there's a system that I became comfortable with, but it does take time.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people, think about it. If you're living on the street, even if you don't, like, let's take it a level further and say, all right, someone doesn't even have the vehicle anymore, which I can't imagine that
Mm.
level of homelessness. I've never been in
Yeah.
that position. I've always had my vehicle. But if I think about it sometimes, and I'm like, gosh, if some people don't have cars. A lot
Yeah.
of homeless people don't have cars. And, like, man, I would use my doors as to create like a barrier
Yeah.
if I had to use the restroom. And
Mm.
people who don't have cars don't even have that option.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many things that make it challenging to not have a home. Or if
Yeah.
you're doing the road life thing, a van that you can stand up in makes a huge difference.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And even having the ability to lock your doors, I mean, it's not a, completely foolproof, but it's a heck of a lot more of a secure environment than nothing, or a piece of cardboard
Absolutely.
or something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. People, even in a vehicle, you're kind of sleeping with one eye open. Excuse me.
Mm.
But without, if you've got a piece of cardboard or a tent that or you're just sleeping on a bench, can you imagine the level of alertness? That's why a lot of these people, not all, but that's why most of these people self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. How the heck are they going to fall asleep if they don't?
Yeah. Yeah. Or yeah, then of course in the music industry, people self-medicate with for pain because they experience pain, physical pain. Even that was what Prince apparently he was recovering from an injury he had on the road, and it's very common where you're in this music industry, you have to perform, and if you don't, there's 100 other bands that are ready to take your place. And yeah, being on the road's the only place you make money, and you have to perform. It's like, well, I hurt my wrist. Well, you have to perform. So the record company, of course, will, yeah, here's this magic. They have doctors that are willing to sign up for all kinds of stuff. That's why so many of them get addicted. But look at how you are, and how much you have overcome so gracefully. Proud to know you, Tara, smiling. Life might always be hard, but please acknowledge how much you have and have done or can do. Yeah,
That's
works is
very
hard.
thoughtful. Yep. Right. That's really thoughtful, Ned. Thank you.
Yes, yes, that is. Let's see here. Simply, hmm, yes, that. So ketamine, that's for drug resist. Actually, I'll let you.
Yeah, ketamine, it's been a lifesaver for me, honestly. It's for people who have treatment resistant depression.
Hmm.
And what that means, I might not do a 100% perfect job at describing this, but my understanding is that treatment resistant depression means that you have failed two conventional treatment. um, I'm looking for the word treatments, just treatments. So I failed more than two, which
Hmm.
means that I took several different medications. I tried SSRIs. I tried SNRIs. They made my depression worse.
Wow.
And, therapy is treatment for depression as well, like CBT with a licensed therapist. That wasn't working for me. And so the combination of those things, having failed 2 treatments and having conventional therapy not work on me, means that I have what's called treatment-resistant depression. And thank God I started working with a nurse practitioner about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not, maybe like a year and 3 months, maybe not quite a year and a half, but if we round up, a year and a half, I started working with her, and we tried a few different things. She actually did a genetic test on me. And interestingly, a lot of the medications that previous medical healthcare professionals had put me on showed up on that genetic profile test as having a significant interaction, which means that there's a high probability that I won't process it in a way that's helpful. So had we done that in the beginning, I'm like, why didn't we do this in the beginning? It could have saved me a year of my symptoms worsening. But I guess it was for some purpose, which I may never know what that purpose is. Ketamine was introduced to me about 9 months ago by my nurse practitioner, and it's for people who have treatment-resistant depression. Now, you have to be on an antidepressant alongside of ketamine. Some people use it off-label. That's the physician or the nurse practitioner's right to be able to use things off-label. My NP does things by the book, and she put me on medication that's used for treatment-resistant depression. And it's not an SSRI, it's not an SNRI. I feel self-conscious about saying what it is, but it's an atypical antipsychotic that's used for treatment of schizophrenia and bipolar, but it's also used for treatment of treatment-resistant depression at a low dose. So I've done well on that. It's called Vraylar. Of course, I'm not suggesting that you go get on Vraylar. Like, talk to your medical healthcare professional about if it's right for you. But for me, it's worked really well. And then that in combination with the ketamine has been a life changer. I mean, if you go back to my early videos where I was just thinking about doing treatment, and I was really nervous about it because I was very serious about my recovery. And I had some people from the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous really poo-poo ketamine treatment and asking me questions like, how do you think this is going to affect your sobriety? Have you thought about how this is going to affect your sobriety? And I was just like, well, yeah, but like nothing else is working. And my NP thinks that it might really help me. And so I had to get over my preconceived conceptions of what sobriety is and decide that, okay, I'm going to use this as prescribed, which is what the big book talks about. We use medications as prescribed is literally what it says. I think not to poo-poo AA, like I love AA. I got clean and sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. It served a really important purpose in my life, but I almost didn't pursue ketamine treatment because of people and what they were saying. But if I study the literature in AA, it's supportive of me taking the path that I took. So I think really, I really had to get honest with myself and say, can I handle this? Can I take it as prescribed? Am I going to abuse it? And I have been able to take it as prescribed, and it has improved my depression almost to the point where I don't even notice it anymore. Now, every once in a while, things will happen, and I'll get into these funks. And that might be a dosing issue. Like I tried to lower my dose significantly. I thought maybe I could come off of ketamine now. And so we started lowering my dose, and we went too low. And am sad to say that I'm not quite ready to come off of it yet, because I would be okay for the first part of the week, and then the end of the week I would slump. And this happened for a couple weeks in a row when nothing situational happened. It was just for no reason at all,
Sure.
depression,
Yeah.
which is what I was dealing with before I started treatment. So we increased my dose back to what it was before we started tapering down. And I do in-clinic treatment once a month now. It used to be every week, but we've gone down to once a month. And then I do at-home treatment every week if I don't get in-clinic treatment. So I do a mixture of intramuscular injections in clinic, and then at home I take oral sublingual troches, which dissolve underneath my tongue. But actually, when I've got 3 more doses left for at-home treatment, and then I'm going to be switching to nasal spray.
Interesting.
To give that a try. I guess it's more bioavailable and it's more affordable as well.
Okay. Makes sense. Let's see here. I got Ned. Thank you for being so open about your experiences and sharing the realities of being homeless. So many people have no clue. That is, and like I said, that was something which I didn't expect to get into at that level, but there's a lot that you have been through that, there's just so much there. I was just relaying to a friend today that growing up in performing arts was like the discipline, the competition. It's not for everyone to thrive in, though it's a valuable experience. Yes. That's where people are trying to reimagine that industry of what it might be like to do virtual concerts, maybe through VR and things like that. And we've seen that a lot in Europe. There's a lot of independent artists who are being a little more, they're taking time in their, concert tours. They're taking a little time. They'll do a weekend here, maybe, then the next weekend, instead of just boom, 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 trying to rack out all these shows consistently. What do you do if you get injured? You don't perform. Well, you shelled out a lot of money for that concert. Those people need to be paid, and all sorts of other things. And and if you don't want to do your job, there's 100 other people just waiting for a chance. So I didn't know about the genetic testing. Yeah, and I think that's fairly new, isn't it? Genetic testing for drugs. I've heard of a couple people.
Good question. I don't know how new it is, but I did it about 1.5 years ago. My insurance covered it, and it saved us so much time, because there are drugs that my NP was going to prescribe to me, but she was like, "Nope, we can't do that. Oh, nope, we can't do that." Wow. And we discovered also that my body has I don't want to say it on YouTube, the MTHFR gene. If you say all those letters in combination, it's something that's not appropriate for YouTube. NTHFR. That gene, I tested positive for that gene, and my body does not process B vitamins, the B9 and the B12, the way that most people's bodies process them.
Wow.
So my nurse practitioner prescribed methylated B9 and B12 for me. And I have noticed a significant increase in my energy level since I've been taking those. So that's a part of the genetic test. It's called GeneSight is the one that I used. And a part, like one of the things that's checked for in that profile is that gene.
Sure. Yeah, I've of course done DNA testing for back when I started gaining weight and couldn't figure out why. It's like, no, this shouldn't be happening. My doctor put me through that and found, that I actually cannot absorb carbs the way, and of course there's a big anti-carb kick, and that's all well and good, but I I can't actually absorb carbs the way most people do. So I really have to be mindful of that, as well as this blood issue. DNA testing showed that, yeah, that's hereditary. So, I mean, at least I don't have to go looking, how did I get all this extra iron that my body's storing? It's hereditary, and, it's easy enough to treat. So, yeah, but we do see that, that's being used more and more, and with, surprising efficiency. And we see, of course, Cosmic was saying hi.
Hey, Christy.
Let's see here. I already asked you Pop-Tarts ravioli, and that's where you showed that you want to be a rebel. That's fine. Okay. Cube rule of food. Of course, this is, they consider the sushi. I would say this is an error, that this should be cannoli because, because Italians. We see a calzone is completely encased. So technically, I think ravioli would be a calzone. But okay, you want to be a rebel and say no, that's fine. I'm not going to guilt you into the proper way of thinking or anything. You want to be wrong. That's okay. You can.
You know what? You know what I want to be right about, though. I have wanted to make a sourdough Pop-Tart for so long now, and I haven't done it. But I think you've just inspired me to experiment with, or if it's not a Pop-Tart, a toaster strudel or something like that with Vicky, I think would be so good. Call it whatever you want. I don't care if it's a calzone or if it ends up being a taco or whatever. I just want to make it and taste it.
Yes, Tara Smiling does have a channel. She's taking what was the term you used? Not hiatus,
a livatus.
Yes, a
livatus.
Right now, but I know that she does have plans sometime in the future to. I will be on Donkey Kong. Thanks for that. Why do they call it Donkey Kong? He's not a donkey, and he's not. Well, I mean, I guess he's kind of like King Kong a little bit, but he's not a donkey. I don't get that part. Let's see here.
You know what I do want to say? I know in the beginning I was like, I don't have anything to plug. I'm not taking one-on-ones right now because I'm too busy. I'm not going live right now because I'm freaking busy. The channel does exist if you want to check out what I've done. But people keep asking. Multiple people last week have asked me to write a book. And I've been like, it's just not that I'm not that interesting, right? People, though, have been encouraging me to write a book. And so if you think that would be a good idea, I would be interested in knowing that you would be interested. I feel like I don't really necessarily want to write the book for myself, but I would want to write it if it could be helpful to other people. So drop a comment or send an email. It doesn't even have to be about the book. If you want to connect with me, you can send an email. I am trying my best to get caught up on emails, but it's tarasmiling@yahoo.com. Ben knows sometimes I'm short, but if you follow up with me, I'm more apt to see it come through and be like, oh, I need to get back to this person. Ben does that with me. He'll send a follow-up and then I'll see it come through and respond.
Yes, that of course you are extremely busy now, and like I said, I can sympathize with that. It's amazing how much time some things can wind up taking, even if you think, oh no. It's like this requires a lot of research sometimes, and like, oh my gosh. What's the weirdest hobby you have heard about?
The weirdest hobby. The weirdest hobby. See, I can find merit in all hobbies. I think all hobbies are good things. I'm trying to think of what's because some people don't have hobbies at all, and that's a shame. Well, not a shame. I don't want to shame anybody, but it's sad to me when people don't have hobbies.
Sure.
A weird hobby. I mean, I don't understand. Okay, some people are this is gonna cause a ruckus, I feel like. But I personally don't understand. Okay, when I was little, I liked Legos, but I don't understand Legos as an adult. And some people might push back on that with me, but I don't get the Lego thing. I also personally I support Legos as a hobby. I do. I support all hobbies, and I support this as a hobby too. I personally don't understand. Well, I guess I understand it, but it's just not my cup of tea. Video games. You know, I don't understand how someone can spend 4 hours at a time on video games. Although I support it, I think all hobbies are good. Maybe if you're into like sadomasochism or something, maybe that's debatable. Maybe that's my answer.
Not bad.
Masochism.
Not bad. Not bad.
I had to think through that one. Thanks for bearing with me. If you're into Legos or video games, I just want you to know you have my support. If you're into masochism, that's weird. But I guess you have my support too, you know, like different strokes for different folks.
Yes. Have you ever stepped on a Lego in bare feet?
I have. Not as an adult because I don't have children, but as a child, and that still hurt, even though I wasn't my full weight.
It's amazing, and the people I've asked that question to, and yeah, it's almost like universal. It's something that everybody knows now. What the pain that's associated with stepping on a Lego in bare feet. What's the most ridiculous lie somebody said to your face? I had to dig for my own memory of that one. That one.
The first place that my mind went was that I am looking beautiful today, when I was just like totally disheveled, you know, like living in my car, hadn't showered for like 10 days. You look beautiful today. I'm like, I bet.
Oh no!
I bet.
Oh no! Oh, terrifying! Good grief! I gotta do something. Overwhelming, confusing. Oh yeah. Looks at gaming PC. I don't understand it either, but I love it.
And
Yeah.
again, Christy, you've got my support. Like, I think it's wonderful that you have a hobby.
Yes.
I personally don't. I don't get it. I play games with friends every once in a while. It's just not my thing.
Yes, and I'll conveniently leave out my gaming PC right there.
No judgment here. I think all hobbies are healthy, you know?
Which animal resembles your personality the most?
A monkey.
Really?
Yeah.
That came off pretty fast.
Not an ape. Not an ape. Maybe some days an ape. But like a monkey. A playful monkey.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Flick Fox. Donkeys are associated with being stubborn. Kong implies a large ape because of King Kong. The character they created was a stubborn large ape, which led to him being named Donkey. Holy crap. I would have never of that was one of those questions.
Thanks, Flick Fox.
Yeah, okay. Well, geez, another life mystery solved.
Check.
If you could change the color of your body like a chameleon, how would you use that ability? Or in what instances would you use it?
Well, I don't know if this is healthy or not, but sometimes I just want to disappear, right? Sometimes I have situations where at the center, for example, I get hit on and people will want to get like uncomfortably close. And I feel like in those moments, it might be nice to be able to go invisible and just like slowly back away. That's not what I actually do. I've actually found good results with just sitting up real straight, looking them right in the eye, not showing any sort of fear or weakness, I have very good luck with that. But I think the ability to go invisible and just disappear sometimes is right up my alley. Again, I don't know if that's healthy to want to disappear sometimes, but let me know if you can relate to that. I can't be the only one that wants to disappear sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. I think there's always, I think a lot of us have had situations where, we wish we had that ability. I want to play me some Donkey Kong now. What you got? Actually, that was not on you. That one's on me for starting that. Is there any question that you can think of that I should have asked that I didn't?
Good question. You know what? You could ask me what my next plans are for Vicky.
What are your next plans for Vicky? Well, I know that you're already doing sourdough pancakes, so
I do sour. Yep, I haven't done sourdough pancakes in a while, but I do love me some sourdough pancakes. My next plan is to chart some uncharted territory with Vicky, if you can believe that. I'm going to be making sourdough scones.
okay.
Wrap your head around that one. Now, I have toyed with the idea of making like chocolate chip scones or blueberry scones or pumpkin scones. I have some which I might actually do. I might actually make the pumpkin scones because I have some pumpkin left over that I need to use. But I'm not going to go get, because with the cookies that I normally make, they're white chocolate chip or pumpkin white chocolate chip sourdough cookies, and they're so good. So I thought maybe I should go get some white chocolate chips and make some pumpkin white chocolate scones and see how those turn out. But I think I'm just going to make some pumpkin scones now that we're into fall, fall.
Yes.
So that's my new endeavor. I hope that they're not too good. That's my fear. That's why I haven't made them yet. I'm like, I'm gonna eat all of them,
Kristen, Melinda, how you doing? Well,
Hey, Kristen.
I'm definitely looking forward to if you ever document such, either on video or in text form, how your success with the sourdough Pop-Tart might turn out, or toaster strudel, whatever you want to call it. I'd be interested to see how that turns out.
Thank you. I think the toaster strudel might be a little bit easier and more delicious too. I like toaster strudel. I like Pop-Tarts too, but just the soft, doughy, sort of gooey nature of the toaster strudel is appealing to me.
Yes, and of course, Kristen Melinda, she likes to blame the loss of her voice on getting sick. But those of us in the know realize she was at the Tool concert. She was yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs, and she lost her voice that way. But okay, if we're going to play onto this illusion she's trying to paint, fine. Okay, Kristen. I hope.
Well, maybe she didn't get enough sleep. Give her some credit. Give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe because she was out hooting and hollering at the Tool concert like a bad A. Maybe she didn't get enough sleep, and maybe she is feeling a little off kilter, and maybe she needs some sleep, and maybe she deserves it. In fact, I think she does.
Yes. And again, Mighty Tara does have a website, but she's taking a live hiatus. So Ned has thrown her link in the chat quite a bit. So any other projects you got going on that you see, or that you see possibly could be coming up, or?
I mean, there's a seed that's been planted that I might write a book. I don't know if I'm going to do that, or I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. someone came into the center the other day, a service provider, and she was asking about my story because I work the front desk. She's like, so how did you get this job? And I was like, well, I lived in my car for 5 years and I lived in shelters for 20 months and now I'm housed. And she's like, what a perfect person to be working this role. And I said, I know, that's why I'm here. And she asked me a little bit more about living in my car and how I transitioned into shelters. And I started telling her the story and she's like, you should write a book. And I was like, kind of like crickets, in my mind. Like, that seems like such a big endeavor. And I would only want to do it if it would be helpful to other people. Yeah. But there's the potential for that. There's, my shift in wanting to create things that entertain, but also inspire people to recover. For me, recovery has multi-dimensions. It's got my mental health recovery journey and then also my substance misuse recovery journey. I've worked both of those in parallel with one another. And I'm honestly, I'm just going to be frank with you all. I honestly got pretty burnt out talking about recovery on YouTube. And I think that's part of why I'm on the Livatus right now. It started feeling draining. It started feeling like, God, I just don't have the energy to be able to talk about this anymore. Yeah. I want to go live it. I want to go and swim in the ocean. And I started working again at a normal job with awesome people, doing something that I love, providing peer support. And I enjoy doing that online virtually too, but there's a level of getting energy, like interacting with people face to face in person that I wasn't getting from going live. Now, that being said, and to your question, I do host meetings on Thursday nights on Discord that are face to face. People have the option to turn on their cameras or not. Ben, I love seeing you there. And everybody's welcome. If you want to join on Discord, I don't know if anybody has a link to pop it in the chat to Discord, or maybe I could try to get a link real quick, but I don't want to get too distracted from the conversation right now, or send me an email at terrasmiling at yahoo.com, and I would be happy to send you a link to the Discord meeting. But those are the types of things that light me up, that give me energy, is face-to-face contact, whether it's on Discord or seeing your face here in person, Ben. It's so much easier for me to interact with people like this or in person than it is to be the only person on the screen and be talking to who knows who, right? So I would say, in terms of what I'm working on right now, I think my biggest project right now is revisiting what it is that I want to create in the world and creating some structure and a strategy around how I want to be of service to people. For a while, the YouTube peer support thing felt really energizing to me. I got energy. I was super wired after going live. And then it's like I started enjoying the one-on-ones more and the Discord meeting more because it's face-to-face. And now that I'm working at this daytime navigation center with people in person, that lights me up. And I feel energized when I get off of work. And so I'm trying to honor the things that are working for me too, rather than just trying to be of service to everyone, everywhere. I'm trying to find a balance of what works for me too. And so that's the biggest project I think that I'm working on right now, is figuring out how I can be of service to other people while also honoring myself and what lights me up.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not, it took a couple tries, but I did pop a link for Tara's Discord. I didn't know if you wanted to be that open about it. I didn't accidentally have how do I put this? I wasn't scripting for Starfield, and I didn't accidentally have player add item and then an ID number for a thing for Starfield. I didn't accidentally paste that. But yes, And she holds meetings on Thursday at 7, right? California time?
6 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
6 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. Maybe that it'll probably be 7 o'clock for some people, who are like Central Time, I think.
Well, yeah, it'd be 7 for Mountain,
Mountain.
8 Central, 9
Wait,
Eastern.
is it an hour later where you're at?
No, I'm on the same time as you right now.
That's what I thought. I was like, was I an hour late to this live stream just now?
No, Arizona. I love this, and I am so going to poke everybody else in the eye about this. We don't change our clocks.
Right,
because we're lazy.
Which is awesome. I used to live in Arizona, and that was like one of my favorite parts about it.
I do like Cosmic Christie's typo, and she acknowledges it later on, but I do like that because of the particular story you tell. I can just say how lovely you are looking, Tata, as always. And of course,
I love it when you call me Tata.
But yes, I remember you mentioning that of ending a letter or an email.
Yeah. Actually, I was just going to tell that story. I was writing an email. This was very early on in my reintegration to the workforce. And I was responding to an email to who is my now boss. He's like, this is now my boss, and he's awesome. He's like the best boss ever. I was responding to an email from him, and I signed my name and didn't proofread it before I sent it. And of course, now I proofread everything multiple times, but I signed it best, Tata, sent it, and then realized later that I had signed my name Tata instead of Tara, and it was very embarrassing. I had never brought it up to him. I don't know if he noticed or not, but thank God he's my boss now. So
there, I just made a new one. Yeah, because I'm not used to Discord. Oh, wait a minute, GU. That's. Oh, wait a minute. Kristen Melinda. Oh, okay, Kristen Melinda. Okay.
Thank you, Ben and Kristen, for posting links. I didn't want to be multitasking and get too distracted. I'm easily distracted, y'all.
Well, yeah, the thing is, I'm not used to Discord, and there's like a couple ways to find the ID, and I never can remember them, so I'm usually fumbling around. And yes, I used a really old, because somebody had given it to me in chat, and I thought that'd be an easier way to find it, but oops, it expired. So yes.
Oh yeah. You can. Yeah, I don't know if it's just me or if other people are able to get a link that doesn't expire. I always put one that does expire on YouTube, like when I'm not on a live Vetus, but I've been thinking about like maybe I should just start posting links that don't ever expire. Like that would make sense. Maybe that might be a setting that I have to modify to allow people, like as the owner of the Discord, to be able to give people the option to provide links that don't expire. Anyways, systems challenge. That's not to be a concern to anybody here.
You can pass that if you don't want to answer.
Flickfox, I am 39 years young.
Wow. Yeah, and I'm still amazed that you still look like you're made of rubber. Although, like I said, at 39, you're still fairly bulletproof. So, yes, you need to fill your own cup before you can fill others up. You can't pour. Yes, that is so true. Well, any closing thoughts?
Well, I'm getting ready to go to the beach with a friend. I'm going to be swimming in the ocean. And my final thought would be, what have you done that's fun today? Yeah, this was fun. I had fun doing this with you, Ben. I'm gonna have some fun swimming in the ocean too. I actually just splurged yesterday because there's a Labor Day sale going on at Patagonia. I'm not sponsored by Patagonia. I would love to be, but I'm not performing at that level quite as of now. Patagonia has a Labor Day sale through tomorrow where some of their past season stuff is 50% off. All their past season stuff is 50% off. They do this twice a year. And I just bought a hood for wintertime ocean swimming and surfing. So I'm super excited about it because my wetsuit right now does not have a hood. And so it'll keep me nice and cozy. It will keep my neck warm and I get a brain freeze when I go in the ocean in the winter. So this will prevent my brain from freezing.
Oh, sure.
And so I'm super stoked about the hood, and I got it for half off. It was only $36 plus shipping. But I would just ask, today's Labor Day. It's a holiday. A lot of people have the day off. And I would just, as a final thought, ask what you've done for fun today. And if you haven't done anything that you consider to be fun, what could you do for fun today after we get off of this live chat or live stream?
Just wanting to see what kind of answers we get. Created a poll asking if Tara should write a book. Just polling the audience real quick here. Yes, and that is a good point, because sometimes, what was that quote? Life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. That one's actually fairly well known, but it's almost to the point of cliche, but I figure I had to say it. Wow, so far it's still at 100%. So I think that needs a third option.
What should the third option be?
Yeah, what should the third option be, Anik? Anik, I wanted to tell you, it's really good to see you, by the way.
Agreed. I don't think I said hello to you, Anik, because you slipped in there when Ben and I were talking, but it's nice to see you, and I really want to know what the third option should be.
Yeah. And every time you say Patagonia, I keep thinking you're talking about Patagonia, Arizona, which is a really small little town, little tiny little lake, where you almost have to be constantly locked in a turn the entire time to water ski. So.
Oh, interesting. I actually never heard of Patagonia, Arizona. I endearingly call Patagonia, the clothing company, Patagucci.
Oh, wow.
I love me some Patagucci.
Yeah.
They are, Kristen, Patagucci is pricey, but it's so worth it. They offer lifelong repairs on clothing. Like, you can get clothing at a thrift shop and then send it into Patagonia for repair if it needs it. I love Patagonia. And $36 for a wetsuit hood is, in my opinion, a no-brainer.
Wow, of course, that Chris and Melinda keeping up on clothing prices. Yeah.
And another thing, it's fun for me to be able to invest in something like that, because, gosh, 5 years ago, I did buy my wetsuit, my Patagonia wetsuit, although I got it at a deep discount at the Patagonia outlet in Santa Cruz. I spent all my money on that, but 5 years ago, I couldn't imagine being like, oh, sure, no big deal. To spend, I know $35 isn't that much, but to me at that time, $35 was my food money. It's all that I had to eat. So it feels like serious progress that I've made it to a point where I'm like, $35, no big deal. And it's going to be something that I can use for the next few years.
Sure.
If that feels like progress, and it's an investment in my having fun, which is in my opinion, one of the most important things in life, that we have fun.
Yeah, it's about time that you acknowledge your destiny to become a surfing goddess. So.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks. So good to see those of you I haven't seen very often. So good to touch base with each of you, Ben, Tara. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Ned's. This entire show felt so good, like a homecoming almost. So many familiar friends in one place. Good interview, good discussion. Love this. Well, Tara, I think thank you so much. If you do like this show, please like and subscribe. I'm still trying to work up a standard ending, and I got nothing. But wait backstage, and I'll get with you in a second. Just going to go ahead and close this out.
We can use, do you want me to give my closing, what I do when I do go live, when I'm not on a live-itis?
Yes, please.
I always say, it has been a pleasure speaking with you as always. And then I say, What do I say? I can't even remember. It's been so long, but I do say it has been a pleasure talking with you as always. I love you all very, very much, and I hope to talk with you soon.
Great. And of course, I make a new mistake every time. This was the first time I meant to launch a video, and the video wasn't linked. So hopefully, the ending one is good. But I'll get with you in a second, Tara.
Sounds good.
I do hope you all take care. Have yourselves a great day. Thank you so much. Again, please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. Have an awesome day.